Hope everybody's okay with this. So I just want to, I don't have to sign in. Uh-oh. Make sure it's recording. Oh, there we go. So thank you for coming, everybody. And this workshop is on request because a lot of people have been asking about the LIRSPE and I'll explain exactly how it's been working. We're working with the National Academy of Health and Physical Literacy. And I just want to thank Kristen Morgan, my co-chair, and some of our other committee members on here. And my name is Lauren Lieberman, and I'm a distinguished service professor at SUNY Brockport. And I teach in adapted physical education. And I am one of the creators of the Lieberman-Bryan Inclusion Rating Scale for Physical Education. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And please, if as I'm talking, I want to leave this kind of informal. If you have any questions, if something's unclear, please feel free to just unmute and ask a question or raise your hand, but I might not see it if I'm sharing. And I just want to thank my graduate students, Jacob and Casey, for being here. Casey's also going to show us how to use, Casey's going to show us how to use the link that I'm going to share with you. But I just wanted to give everybody a quick background. And so I'm going to share my screen here. And, and so again, we're talking about the Lieberman-Bryan Inclusion Rating Scale for Physical Education. So some of you might know Ali Bryan, who validated this with us, and also Michelle Grenier. And so for this afternoon, some of you it's afternoon, some of you it's night. But the goal here is to introduce the Lieberman-Bryan Inclusion Rating Scale for Physical Education. It's a tool that can assist general PE and adapted physical education teachers in supporting all students in the physical education setting, and that it's not just for kids with disabilities. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about how it's being used around the world right now. I'm going to discuss how it will be used in future research and programming. And then you're going to be able to see how you can utilize it's called PE Inclusion Solutions to evaluate professional development, to evaluate yourself and get professional development credit and a lot of resources, which we'll show you. And then also at the end, I'm going to also explain a questionnaire that we just validated. It's called the Perceptions of Inclusion for Physical Education Questionnaire. And that can be used in conjunction with the LIRSPE and then some future directions. And so just a little overview of what the LIRSPE is. And so it's a rating scale to determine the effort that the teacher makes in order to include all students. And it's not just for kids with disabilities. And you'll see some of the items, it's like, us, the people here, it's kind of like, duh. But other people that don't really know that some of their teaching approaches might be marginalizing some students. And I am proud to say that it's currently, obviously it's in English, but it's been translated into Hebrew, Portuguese, Lithuanian, Czech, Dutch, German, Spanish, I forgot Spanish. And I just got an email from Singapore that they're doing it in Singapore as well. And so it is helping a lot of teachers in other countries as well as the United States. But one of the things I wanted to share is that in a recent study that we did, we looked at what should the content be for that Intro to Adapted class. And so we asked 200 physical education teachers, and they gave us the top 10 topics that should be in an Intro to PE class, Intro to Adapted PE class. And then of course, we had 2,000 responses and we whittled them down to a list of responses that should be in the Intro to Adapted class. And then we did a Delphi study. And so these are the top topics that people came up with that should be in that Intro to Adapted Physical Education class. You see that here at the beginning, it's like instructional strategies, modifications, universal design, IEPs. And even though it's not at the top, the LIRSPE was one of the topics that experts felt should be taught in the Introduction to Adapted Physical Education class. And so I'm hoping that a lot of our colleagues are using this because it is truly best practices. And so you might say, well, how did you come up with this, right? So what I kept hearing teachers, kids saying was the kids are marginalized, kids feel excluded, and there is research to back this up. So what we were reading about was that kids are being bullied because their because their abilities were so different than their peers because the class wasn't meeting their needs. Kids were experiencing social isolation, negative social comparisons, like when kids are teasing them because they're not the same as them. There was obviously, we all know that there's a big lack of teacher preparation for teaching kids with disabilities. Also, that the speed of activities was not appropriate for all children. Even kids with and without disabilities felt like the activities moved too fast and they couldn't really be part of that activity. Also, when kids pick teams, the kids who are not good athletes, maybe awkward socially, disabilities, they're always picked last. And that is very marginalizing and exclusionary. And also, the students believed that the teachers influenced their participation in the activities. When they were marginalized, they felt the teacher didn't want them to play. And then, of course, this can go on and on, lack of adaptations and modifications. And then the other thing that drove us to create this LIRSPE was that I didn't know if my student teachers, when they were out observing their with their SBTE, I didn't know if my students were actually seeing a good class. Were they seeing a class that welcomed all students, that didn't marginalize students? Could they be skeptical and actually look at a critical eye to the teachers? But there was no systematic way to evaluate that. So this was why we created the LIRSPE. And so I'm going to show you the article, the validation, and I'm also going to show you how you can get access directly to the LIRSPE itself. But given this varied and very inconsistent experience of students, we felt that there was this need for this systematic observation tool to determine how inclusive physical education classes are for all students. And so the purpose of the LIRSPE is, again, to evaluate the effort. Now, this is why we have to make the PE the perceptions of inclusion questionnaire. Because just because a teacher gets a high score on the LIRSPE, I'm looking at Faye, let's say Faye gets a good score on the LIRSPE, do her students feel included? We don't know that right now. We just know that Faye did a good job setting everything up if she got near a 5. So it also determines the strengths and the weaknesses of a lesson, so you can see where you're getting a 5 and where you're getting a 4, or 3, or 2. Also, it helps determine the areas to improve in classes and programs. So if you do a self-observation or you observe several classes in a program, you can see where the weak areas are if you do the LIRSPE several times. And again, we also train future teachers with the LIRSPE. So kind of just an overview of the intervention. So basically, from the time the kids walk into the gym till the time they leave, every activity they do can be scored from a 1 to 5. Okay? And so it's the introduction and entrance. I mean, let's face it, if all the kids don't come in at once, the kids who don't come in or aren't part of the introduction, they're not going to feel included. Is the warm-up conducive to all kids, or are they going to feel left out when everybody finishes before them? The speed of play. Does the teacher differentiate instruction? Does the teacher provide a variety of choice within the lesson? And are the kids allowed to choose the variety of equipment, variety of rules, who they get to be partners with? Demonstrations. Does the teacher pick lots of kids to do demonstrations, or just the kids who are able-bodied? Use of support staff. Do the paras know that what's happening in the lesson? Do they know what they're supposed to be doing? And then also, did the teacher plan for partners, or did they say get a partner and of course some of the kids are left out and they don't have a partner. And that can be very awkward and marginalizing when teachers say, just get a partner. So also when the teachers create teams, they're not picking teams because we know over and over that kids hate that. So are the teachers picking teams effectively and everybody has a partner and everybody's on a team and not marginalized? Oh, elimination games. Does the teacher not play elimination games? Because if you play elimination games, you get a one. And so there's actually a range of elimination games. We can talk about that. Does the teacher manage waiting time and distribute equipment so that there's not a lot of waiting or downtime within the class? Does the teacher provide a choice of equipment throughout the lesson? And it's okay, and everybody uses the equipment, not just the kids with disabilities. Are they minimizing any distractions? Also, related to assessment, not only are all kids being assessed, but all kids' scores are counted. And then does the teacher go back and give everybody specific feedback using their names and also having high expectations for them to perform? And then lastly, before they leave, does the teacher have a closure and do they check for understanding? And so there's 27 items. And so I'm going to show you right now. So we work with the National Center for Health, Physical Activity, and Disability. And on their website there's a link to the LIRSPE. And so you can actually look here. I'm going to show you this, where you can see where you can download the scale right here. I'm going to have to move this. And then also there's a rubric for each item so that you can actually see what's a 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you're not second guessing yourself. So it kind of describes if a child comes in just a few minutes late, then they don't have to get a 1, maybe they'll have a 3. They're still late, but they're not that late. Okay? And then there's also on this link that I'm giving you, this is the publication of the validated assessment. Okay? But what I want to show you is this video that we made with NICPAD that's going to talk about this is a short video of what does a 5 look like for each of the items. Okay?
Lieberman Bryan Inclusion Scale for Physical Education was created with the philosophy of universal design for learning. This tool can assist teachers with the planning and instruction of their classes to ensure all students are taking part in the lesson. Although this does not ensure the feeling of being included for students with disabilities, it helps teachers be inclusive as possible in execution of all lessons. The rating scale can be used in professional preparation classes as an intervention to improve teaching and a training protocol for reflective practice. We hope this will be helpful on your journey to include all students. When the general physical education teacher welcomes children into the gym, all of the kids in the class are together. Children with disabilities are sitting or standing with their peers and included in the instructions during the introduction. The class do the warm-up together with everyone working at their own pace. Vary speed of play based on the performance of all children to avoid leaving anyone behind. Provide instructions that allow all students to succeed and benefit within the program by accommodating different learning styles.
See how they're sitting and bouncing the ball here? So they're giving them options to sit and bounce or kneel, stand.
Be sure the lesson provides a variety of choices to execute skills. Give students opportunities to make decisions on their individual learning.
You see how the nets are at different heights and they can make
Make
a
sure
choice?
proper support and accommodations are available options to the class. For demonstrations, use different members of the class to show skills.
The paraeducator knows what to do in class.
Provide the lessons to a paraeducator before class and explain their role throughout the activities. When using partners, make sure that students with disabilities have chances to partner with same-aged peers when appropriate, not just the paraeducator. The paraeducator should encourage social interactions with peers when possible. Plan ahead to organize and manage partners effectively, and ensure that children with disabilities have a partner. Do not allow students to pick teams.
This is just one suggestion of how do you create teams with the rock, paper, scissors.
Avoid elimination games. Avoid students waiting in line to maximize physical activity during the class.
The students can also pick
Distribute
their
as much
preferred
equipment as
equipment.
possible to provide more opportunities to respond. Maximize engagement time and opportunities to respond by modifying the organization and rules of the game. Be sure there is a range of equipment to meet the learning needs of all students in the class. Reduce noise and distractions to maximize success.
And all these assessments matter. They all are counted.
When assessing the class, children with disabilities should be assessed alongside their peers. Provide modifications as needed. When children with disabilities are assessed, the scores should count at least for the baseline of performance. Give feedback in regard to skill performance that is positive general or positive specific, with the use of first names. The whole class should be together and attentive as you present the closure or cool down of the class. Check for understanding of all children during closure.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. Does anybody have any questions so far? Was it pretty clear? Thumbs up. Bye. Pretty clear. All right, awesome. I know some of you might have already seen some of this before, but hopefully some of this will be a bit more new as
Well, I
we
just,
continue. Sorry, what? I heard somebody talking.
oh, yeah, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, my kids are very cognitively delayed, and I was I was hoping to see a little bit more, and like the kids that were all in that video, it seemed like they were all like within a very close range of cognitive development, and I'm kind of missing, I was looking for some solutions on for like my students. I've got I got a lot of them that just like that will just drop during a class, and
Yeah, basically the whole idea, that's just showing one example, but the whole idea is that you're setting your class up for success related to coming in the class at the time. If you want to look through that, some of those might not apply to you, but this is mostly to use an inclusive class. The LIRSPE is, I mean, you can use it in any class, but some of it might not apply to that class. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Good points. Okay, so I'm going to share again. So, so basically what I want to share with you now is I'm going to explain working with NICPAD, and it's called RecTech through the University of Alabama. We created this website called PE Inclusion Solution. And when you click on that, you can put in your data information. Not right now, it's not accepting your data, but you can go in there and you can do the LIRSPE online. So you self-reflect on a class that you taught related to those 27 items. And then once you take that self-reflection assessment of the LIRSPE, anything that you got below a 5, you'll generate resources for yourself. And so you'll see there's articles, there's checklists, videos, websites that can help you with that item you might not have gotten a high score on. And so you can download all of these things. There's also books on there, articles, like I said. So you can download those. And, I tell teachers, don't try to change your whole approach at once. Let's say, for example, your paraeducator wasn't trained or they didn't know what they were supposed to do. Maybe start with that. Maybe you don't have a variety of equipment when you're teaching. You can also address that. So maybe one or two things at a time that can help you get a better score. Because all of these items are shown to make kids feel more included. Also, once you go through and you self-assess, it will generate a certificate of professional development from the National Academy of Health and Physical Literacy, NAHPL. And as I said, this was kind of created by our subcommittee of the Adapted Health and Physical Literacy. Okay, so this is when I'm going to stop sharing. And then Casey, you can share it now.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will share. Where did it go? 1 second. Let me figure out where it went. It's right there. So I should be able to share. Sorry, 1 second. I have it opened in a tab, but it's not popping up to share. Here it is. Okay. Can everybody see?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So I was just gonna go through and show everybody based on a lesson that I evaluated prior what it would look like. So I already loaded all of the different topics in the survey. So this is what it will look like when you would go through and do it. So the first section is that start of class. So it has, as you're watching, you would look and see when the general physical education teacher welcomes the children into the gymnasium, all of the children in the class are together, including the children with disabilities. And so there's all of these different options that should fit for what you are evaluating or watching. So personally, what I saw was that they came about around 5 minutes late, but they did transition easily into the class. Okay, so I'd click this one. And then the next one is children with disabilities are sitting and standing with their peers and included in the instructions of the introduction. So again, I would look through and see which one aligns best with what I was watching. So I would say they come in late and they are away from class members. And then you go to the next one. For mine, it's not applicable because that didn't happen. So if you ever come across one that doesn't align with what you're seeing, like for example, the class that I observed didn't have a warm up, I would just click NA. Okay. So then we'd go through the rest of this. Speed of play. I noticed the game was played with equipment. So I'll just kind of quickly go through this so that you guys can see what the end result is and what resources will pop up based on what you see. Okay. That one.
Maybe just verbalize why you're picking that each one, like what.
Yeah. So I'm picking this one because the instruction was provided that was addressing 3 or 4 different modalities, but not touching all of them. Variety of choices. There was a few choices. It was accommodating in a way. Like what I saw was for the gymnastics unit, there was variety of different choices to participate in movement and equipment to choose from. Yep, they were able to make their own choices. Variety of choice meant speed of play. Sorry. Proper accommodations and supports are available for his or her choices. Notice that it was set up with a few peer tutors, some paras, demonstrations. So there was students with, so I'm choosing the teacher demonstrates and ask students to demonstrate it as well, just because all of the students that I did observe demonstrate did not have disabilities, so that's why I'm choosing that one. Use of paraeducator. Just they stayed in class. They accompanied the students, and what I noticed is that they occasionally assisted the student in class. Lesson provided. No, this was not discussed with the para before class. Peer partner. I would say what I witnessed was that the student would occasionally work with a partner, but mainly their para, if they were paired. Paraeducator encourages social interactions with peers in the class when possible. So Paraeducator does not come to class, comes to class, but does not encourage any interaction with peers, comes to class, and encourages peer interaction when it is convenient or easy. That's what I observed. Teacher plans ahead to organize and manage partners effectively. So teacher directs students in class to find a partner. Student with a disability is standing alone. This one did not apply. There were no partners in this lesson that I observed. Teacher ensures that children with disabilities have a partner. Personally, they did not do partners. Students do not pick teams. So they were divided into groups, but I would say it was not considered matching wise. Teacher avoids elimination games. No elimination games were played. Boys sitting waiting in line. There was about 3 or less students waiting in line. Teacher distributes as much equipment as possible to maximize opportunities to respond. So I noticed that there were a few pieces of equipment that required students to wait. Teacher maximizes opportunities to respond and engagement time for all students by modifying the organization and rules of the game. So what I noticed, engagement time. There were multiple opportunities to engage and the content are offered. There was a lot of challenge by choice in the gymnastics lesson, so that was good. Equipment, there was a range of equipment that allowed for success. So let's see here, which one aligns best? Variety of equipment. I'll probably say, based off this one, about 4. Oops. Environment, were there accommodations made to reduce noise, safety issues, or light? I would say that they made sure that noise and distractions were minimized. The lighting was good. Music was nice volume. It wasn't too loud. And then because it was gymnastics, there was a lot of safety considerations. Assessment, there wasn't assessment quite present in this lesson. So NA and then ANA, this one. Skill-related feedback. So feedback on skill performance is given throughout the class to all children when possible. So what I observed, general and specific feedback was given to most children throughout the lesson. Feedback in regard to skill performance is positive, general, and or positive specific feedback. The use of first names. I did notice a lot of positive, general, and specific feedback using the first names to all the students. Closure. The whole class is together when the teacher presents the closure and warm down of the class. I would say the students with disabilities were present for part of the closure that I watched, but then they left before it fully was ended. And then teacher checks for understanding of all children during closure. I would say they did check for understanding several times, but the students with disabilities had already left before they checked for understanding. So then I go ahead and I click submit. And it tells me the results. So it tells me that the average score is a 3.3 out of 5. Okay. And then it walks you through what your score means. So if mine is 3.3 and I look at 3, that's average. So student is sometimes included, but not all the time. And then it has my personalized solutions. So first, use of paraeducator. I'd click on that. And it brings me down to all of these different resources to use the paraeducator effectively. So you can go through there's a video, there's an article, sample lesson plans, utilizing UDL concepts, communication with paraeducators, and then here's a really good one to look at, game activity and team sport. There's so many resources that pop up for each one that you scored below a 5 on. Techniques for forming groups, Hall of Shame games, management strategies for grouping students. So there's so many different resources. And then you also can download the certificate that you'll get, which will look just like this. So yeah, gives you a nice certificate, the professional development credits. So you're able to download that and save that and print that out. Now I don't know how to get back to.
You could stop sharing, maybe?
Yeah, hold
Ah,
on.
oh,
Okay.
thank you, Casey. Yay. We appreciate you showing everybody how it works. And so we appreciate that. So does anybody have any questions about the website, how to get there, how to go through that self-reflection? Okay, so what I want, just have a few more things to share about the LIRSPE. Thank you again, Casey. That was awesome. And so this is the QR code, or you could go to this. This is the PE Inclusion Solutions. It's just peinclusionsolutions.org. And then usually it does ask you about your demographics. I'm not sure that part's not working right now, but you can go through and self-evaluate in the LIRSPE and get those resources just like Casey did. Hopefully in the next day or two they can fix that part. But the issue that we're having is that if you do the LIRSPE and you get a high score, do the kids feel included? That's something we don't know yet. And so what we are working on is it's called, I don't know if everybody can see this. It's called the PIQ for PE, Perceptions of Inclusion Questionnaire. So in Europe and in other countries, Perceptions of Inclusion Questionnaire is very popular. And so we want to find out, is there a relationship between the high score in the LIRSPE and children's perceptions of inclusion? But this questionnaire was not for physical education. This questionnaire was just for being in school. And so right now we're finishing up validating the PIQ for PE. And is the level of perceptions of inclusion different between students with and without disabilities in your lessons? Or does the type of disability or its degree differentiate students' feelings or perceptions in physical education? So that's what we want to find out with the PIQ. So the perceptions of inclusion questionnaire for PE, it's an easy to use screening instrument for school practice and supporting maybe the identification if there's insufficient inclusion. So, and it looks at the student's perception like related to their parents, the teacher, and the PE teacher. Okay. And so these are the questions that we use. So we took the validated questionnaire and we tweaked it for PE, and then we did a Delphi study on the PIQ for PE questionnaire. And we are presenting this in UCAPA in Prague in next month or in June. So that's just kind of some future research. But how can you use this instrument besides just rating yourself, going on the PE Inclusion Solutions? You can use it for rating teachers in your program. And if you rate enough classes, you can actually have an overview of your program and what are the strengths and weaknesses. It can actually be its own intervention. You can actually look at what areas of weakness, like Casey went through, and there were some definite areas that the teacher could beef up on or improve on. So you can actually use the LIRSPE as an intervention to try to make your classes more inclusive. And again, like I said, a lot of my colleagues use this in their professional preparation courses to help teach their students what does a inclusive class look like, not just for kids with disabilities, but for everyone. Also, and I encourage my students to use this when they're in their field experience, student teaching. Use it with the teacher so that you're not saying, oh, just because they're a teacher and they have a job, does that mean they're a really good teacher for all children? The LIRSPE can help you decide that. And then also, my students can share that with their SBTE or not, but at least they have that information. And then luckily, we can also use this for research. And as people take the LIRSPE on the PE Inclusion Solutions site, we're taking these anonymous results and we're going to see, what are the hardest areas for teachers in the US and how can we help them? And so these are just some ways to use the LIRSPE tool. There's also in our strategies for inclusion in our fourth edition, excuse me, there's a whole chapter on the LIRSPE and how to use it. So if that's something that interests you, excuse me, you can this is from Human Kinetics, this strategies for inclusion. So let me just ask everybody, is anybody using the LIRSPE now? If you're, is anybody using the LIRSPE now and how are you using it?
I'm struggling with it.
You are, Michael? So if,
I'm struggling with it.
okay, and are there any areas that are work better or worse for you?
Well, I guess for starters, paraeducators.
Hmm.
Um, I work for I work for a nonprofit, and um, some of our paraeducators they can be gone within a few weeks, and and
Yeah.
some of, I do have paraeducators that they either look at me as I'm the expert, they either find their way under their butts and they're on their cell phones. There there's there's like countless excuses on why they're not getting the kids involved in the class. Um I have different cognitive abilities in our kids. I got a lot of them that just drop, and for some kids if I can a number of my kids today, I was doing a basketball unit, and for me to take a basketball and prop it up on on a low basket and then just have them push it in, um, that was like a that was like a great feat.
That's a great start, though. I mean, I think that's what you have to think about is how do you universally design your lesson so that they can access whatever unit to the best of their ability? I don't think anything's wrong with that. I think you're doing everything right, Michael. And you know what? Turnover with paraeducators is pretty common. You can have a bagged or like a box training and then just try to train them when they come in as much as you can. But it's not a perfect world, and that's why we had to make this rating scale.
So I have posted on the gym wall, I have social stories, and in the social story, a lot of times at the beginning of the class, I'll gather up the class as much as I can. And in the social story, there is actually three lines, and the lines are um, your staff will play with you. Um, your staff may give you directions, and you can ask your staff for help. And so that's kind of I guess probably the most tactful way that I can say to the paraeducators, you're in here to be working with your kids, not to be taking a break.
Yeah, no, that's you're doing everything right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, so just if you want to think about what you have done with the LIRSP, so once you do go on PE Inclusion Solutions, which I hope everybody will go on and self-evaluate, I think of it as like a 10, 10, 10. And Michael, this might be something you plan. Like, what can you do in the next 10 days to get a better score to make your class more inclusive. Then think about what are some more long-term things, because there's some things, let's face it, you might not be able to do it right away, like maybe ordering more equipment or maybe getting an assessment that works for everyone if you're not assessing. So these are just some things to think about. And then what can you do in the next 10 months? Maybe you could get, sometimes the issue is literally the placement of the students. Can you revisit some of their placements if that's an issue? So 10, 10, 10. Think about what is your action plan to improve on your LIRSPE or improve on how included the kids are. And so this brings me to the conclusion of the discussion of the LIRSPE. But what I wanted to ask everybody is, can you not maybe not tonight, but go on to the PE Inclusion Solutions, and you can do that up to 4 times a year. You can go on there so you can get that professional development certificate and you can self-evaluate and just see how it's going. I mean, I think sometimes when you're done your lesson, like what went well, where did you lose the kids, and or where did someone say that was awesome? I'm so excited. That was so much fun, right? So you kind of can see that in sometimes in your lesson, but I think the LIRSPE kind of helps give you like quantify it. And you can also use the LIRSPE score to go to your administrator if you need more help related to like paraeducators, maybe some behavior management. I know one school I was working with, the kids came late, but they never thought about it being exclusionary. And they could fix it like that. They literally fix it the next class because they didn't think about it, like how marginalized the kids feel when they walk in after the teacher's already welcomed everybody, got them excited, and then the kids with disabilities show up and they're not part of that. Okay. So does anybody have any questions, comments?
Well, I have one for Cassie. Was that a was that an assessment that you did on yourself, or did you have someone do that for you?
So that one was one that I did on somebody else.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so I just encourage everybody, if you go on to the PE Inclusion Solutions, self-evaluate, please share that with your colleagues and friends. And again, like I said, we're also using it to help us make more resources to help teachers. So I just want to thank everybody for coming on your busy schedules. And again, thank you, Casey, for going through that. And also thank you, Kristen, my co-chair. And have a great night, everybody. And I'll stay on if anybody wants to ask any questions about anything.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Colby. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. L. Have a good night.
Thank
Anytime.
you. Good night.
Bye,
Thank
Faye.
you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis.
Do we have to do the LIRSPE to get the credit for attending this, or